Live 5 News starts now with First Alert Weather, tracking Isaias.
Tropical storm warnings are now in place for several low-country counties as Isaias tracks closer. And you can see right now it is just off the coast of Florida. This is the time you need to make sure that you are preparing for this storm. Meteorologist Danielle Prinz is in the First Alert Weather Center this morning. And Danielle, when can we expect this storm off of our coast here in the low country?
Well, those conditions will start to deteriorate tomorrow afternoon, especially as we head through the evening hours, possibly later evening and into the late night hours. That's when the worst conditions will pass our coastline. More on that shortly. This morning, though, here's a look at our tropical satellite imagery of Tropical Storm Isaias, and you can almost see that wind shear just pushing this storm back. If you can imagine, almost like a fan blowing this storm. It's really made it tough for this storm to develop back to that hurricane status this morning. So just off the southeast coast of Florida, back at home here, most of the low country are under the tropical storm warning. So this does exclude inland Colleton County, inland Beaufort counties. So notice all the areas here shaded in orange. That means within the next 36 hours, you could see some of those tropical storm force winds in your area that could take down power lines and lead to some flying debris. So wind damage, certainly a concern as we head throughout tomorrow. So here's some more detailed wind impacts. If you are along the coastline, that's where we should see the strongest winds, 45 to 55 miles per hour possible, with gusts can't rule out up to 70 miles per hour as that center nears our coastal areas. Then just in from the coast, winds 35 to 45 miles per hour with some gusts possibly up to 55 miles per hour. And then those farther inland areas, winds not as strong, but still you could see some of those gusts get up to 45 miles per hour. Here's the latest on Tropical Storm Isaias. Winds this morning not as strong, right at 65 miles per hour just off the coast of southeast Florida. That should brush the Florida coastline and head closer to the low country as we head throughout tomorrow night. So I'll go ahead and take you through. Future tracker should be just offshore with winds sustained at 65 miles per hour. So still a tropical storm, but could potentially move inland just north of our areas. I'll walk you through future tracker coming up in just a few minutes.
And as Isaias tracks closer, be sure to have the Live 5 First Alert Weather app downloaded to your phone. We'll send you any need-to-know updates, and you can find it for free in the App Store. Governor Henry McMaster and the South Carolina Emergency Division say they're monitoring this storm. In a tweet last night, McMaster said evacuations are not necessary, but he is asking you to take your own personal precautions. He also noted that his mask is off in this photo because he is speaking on a statewide conference call. In North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper has activated the National Guard as Isaias approaches. Cooper is encouraging his residents to take the threat of the storm seriously and says they all need to be prepared for the dangers it can bring. Officials say up to 150 members of the National Guard as well as State Highway Patrol are ready to respond if needed. On Friday, Governor Cooper declared a state of emergency, and in a letter, he also requested that President Trump declare an emergency for the state. The American Red Cross of South Carolina is mobilizing volunteers right now and working to determine shelter locations. Now, those volunteers have also been preparing those shelter kits and cots, blankets, and supplies for shelters along the coast. Now, because the coast is preparing for storm impacts, officials with Fort Sumter and Fort Moultrie say the sites will be temporarily closing today. The ferries to Fort Sumter will stop running following that 9:30 morning ride out of Liberty Square and the 10:45 trip out of Patriots Point. Fort Moultrie will be closed all day. To help residents prepare, Berkeley County and the city of Goose Creek are handing out sandbags, and Goose Creek is distributing them at the fire department on Button Hall Avenue, just off of Highway 52. There is a limit of 10 bags per person, and Berkeley County officials announced 11 other locations for distributions. You can find a list of those places on our website, live5news.com. Just look for this story. The city of Georgetown is also offering those sandbags ahead of the storm. City officials say those sandbags and shovels will be available at the old City Hall site on North Fraser Street. Filling the bags is self-serve only. No city employees will be on site because of the pandemic. In the city of Charleston, there are several parking garages that are open to residents right now, and they're all free of charge. It's so people can protect their vehicles in anticipation for possible flooding downtown. The garages are open now, and the city says they'll close on Tuesday at 8 in the morning. Here's a list of those parking garages right here on your screen. Mayor John Tecklenburg says crews are also working to clear debris from drains in flood-prone areas. The State Department of Transportation is also working to make sure we're ready along the coast. SCDOT says crews from the Midlands and upstate are coming to coastal areas to help ensure their response to possible road or bridge issues are met as quickly as possible. We're turning now to the latest details on a body that washed up on the front beach area of the Isle of Palms yesterday afternoon. Information is still very limited right now as the Charleston County Coroner's Office says they are not releasing the person's name at this time. IOP police say the body is linked to an incident on Sullivan's Island. Authorities in Charleston say this man is facing charges after he lit wall art on fire at his apartment complex lobby. 39-year-old Matthew Bishop is charged with arson. The Charleston Fire Department responded to that apartment building on Meeting Street on Friday night. Crews say the fire was out when they arrived. Bishop has since been released from jail after posting a $50,000 bond. Multiple people are injured after a boating incident on Tybee Creek in Georgia. The Coast Guard and crews with the Georgia Department of Natural Resources rescued 9 people from a boat that became aground. Now, Charleston Command Center crews received a report that 4 people were ejected from that boat. At least 5 people were treated for injuries, and 2 of them are now in critical condition at the hospital. 2 people in the Midlands are recovering after surviving a small plane crash in Sumter. Several crews responded to the scene yesterday morning. Officials say the twin-engine plane went down in a swampy area between Highway 15 and Highway 401. The Federal Aviation Administration is investigating this crash. Up next, the school registration deadlines you need to know before students begin the new school year and how you can help kids in an upcoming school supplies drive. We are just over a month away until the start of the school for many districts here in the Lowcountry, but there are still some registration deadlines looming before students go back. In Charleston County, the deadline to register your child for virtual or in-person learning is tomorrow. For Dorchester District 2, new student registration is now open and current student registration begins on Tuesday. The Community Resource Center in Somerville is looking to provide 2,500 students with back-to-school supplies. The organization held a supply drive yesterday at the Rollins Edwards Community Center, collecting items like notebook paper, pencils, folders, hand sanitizer, crayons, and more for children in our area. There will be another collection for donations next Saturday at the Somerville YMCA. Then on August 15th, families can pick up the supplies at Doty Field in Somerville. The format will be drive-through style to keep everyone safe. In Bluffton, hundreds of students now have new school supplies thanks to the 10th annual Back to School Fun Day. The event provided backpacks filled with gift cards, workbooks, and other supply items. Now, organizers say someone stole about 200 backpacks just before this event, so they posted about it on social media, and as a result, the community donated 150 to replace them. Coming up, the latest coronavirus numbers in our state and which parts of the country are seeing a spike.
Good Sunday. Monday morning, tropical storm warnings are in place for most of the low country. I'm meteorologist Danielle Prinz. Now, these warnings do exclude inland Colleton County, inland Beaufort counties, and for right now at least excludes Williamsburg and Georgetown counties. But as the storm makes its way closer along the southeast coast, we should see those warnings go into effect for areas off to the north that right now are shaded in pink. So that does mean areas here shaded in orange, Tri-County area, coastal Colleton County. You could see those tropical storm force winds possibly within the next 36 hours. And that's all because Tropical Storm Isaias, we've been tracking that out for you really through the last week. Winds a bit weaker this morning, sustained at 65 miles per hour thanks to some of that shear that's really made it tough for this storm to intensify. So right now, a tropical storm that should make its way just along the east coast of Florida, along the east coast of Georgia, late tonight, early tomorrow morning, and eventually passing the low country possibly sometime tomorrow evening into the late night hours, and could make landfall north of our areas, say north of Myrtle Beach potentially as we head into the early morning hours on Tuesday. But still, you can see this cone here does include all of the low country, so any jog in this to the west, and we could see that center work its way onshore. However, any jog to the east and conditions in the low country would be much better than that jog to the west. So really, the storm can make its way to the west, to the east. We really have to pay close attention as we head throughout tomorrow evening. Here's a look at our future tracker. This is tomorrow morning, right around 2 a.m. Overnight tonight really should be mainly dry. A couple of showers could work their way onshore throughout the morning hours tomorrow. But if you have any plans throughout tomorrow morning, heading into work, I think you're fine and you should be good to go. But I think we'll see those conditions go downhill as we head throughout the lunchtime hour tomorrow and thereafter. You'll notice that breeze really starting to pick up, becoming a bit gustier through the afternoon hours, especially for our coastal areas. But what we'll be tracking as we head throughout tomorrow afternoon will be these rain bands that'll pick up in frequency and intensity as we head throughout the second half of the day tomorrow. But we'll be keeping a very close eye on the center of this storm and the eye wall. The eye wall is where we see the strongest storms. So right now, Future Tracker, our in-house model, does have the center just passing our coastal areas right around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock tomorrow, bringing the heaviest of that rainfall just along our coastline. But you can see those inland spots really not picking up on too much rainfall as we head throughout tomorrow evening. So this would be keeping the center of this storm off our coastline, potentially making a landfall north of our area sometime early Tuesday morning. But really, if that pans out, and if we see any jog off to the east, some spots really may not see too rough of conditions. However, we have to keep in mind there are still models that take the center much farther off to the west, just across the low country. And like we've been saying, any jog in the system off to the west will increase that chance for seeing some worse conditions across the low country. But for right now, impacts are likely. Some of those impacts do include tropical storm force winds, coastal flooding, rain anywhere from 2 to 5 inches, but we could see some local spots pick up upwards of 6 inches of rain, and then high risk for rip currents, high surf today. Certainly not the best beach day because of those rip currents out there. So impacts expected Monday afternoon through early Tuesday evening. Most of the models now doing a good job at picking up on that center nearing our area sometime tomorrow evening, but we'll notice those impacts, those conditions going downhill through tomorrow afternoon. Here's a look at our wind gust tracker. Tomorrow morning, certainly a bit breezy throughout the day, but as we head closer to 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, that's when we could start to see some of those gusts right around 30, 40 miles per hour along our coastline. Keep in mind, this is just one model, but as we head throughout the late evening hours, as that center nears our coastline, that's when we could see some of the strongest winds just along our shoreline. And then quickly, as we head into Tuesday morning, those conditions should improve as that center lifts north, but back into Williamsburg, Georgetown counties, Upper Charleston counties. It will take a bit longer for conditions to improve for you compared to areas, say, down into Beaufort or Lower Charleston County. But we do have that storm surge watch that is in effect for our coastal areas, including Charleston County, coastal Colleton County. 2 to 4 feet of storm surge certainly possible with those onshore winds paired with high tide right around 8:59 tomorrow evening. Could pose a big issue for some of those areas that typically see that coastal flooding. Pair some rain on top of that. 2 to 5 inches expected. So do keep in mind that flash flood watch is also in effect for most of the low country. So really stay up to date with us throughout the day today. Make sure you're planning, you're preparing today. Expect those widespread power outages tomorrow. Take in anything in the yard that could become flying debris as well. But gorgeous start to the day. Soak in that sunshine. Looks to be a great Sunday. Temperatures starting off hot, warm right now. 77 on Johns Island, 78 right now in North Charleston. Forecast high today, 92 degrees with a 20% rain chance through the afternoon hours. Tomorrow, a first alert weather day. So more information more often. Make sure you have that Live 5 weather app downloaded. As we head throughout Wednesday, still that 40% rain chance, elevated a bit towards the end of the work week. Alexis.
Thank you, Danielle. And state health officials say there are nearly 1,500 new cases of COVID-19 in South Carolina, as well as 35 additional virus-related deaths as of yesterday. 3 of those deaths are out of Charleston County and 2 are out of Williamsburg County. Charleston County is also once again reporting the highest number of new cases statewide with 124. This brings the total number of cases statewide since the outbreak began to more than 90,000 and the number of deaths to almost 1,700. After a week of record numbers in deaths from COVID-19, Florida is preparing for a storm that has forced testing sites to shut down. And residents there say the tropical storm is giving them more worry about as it gets closer to its coast. Danya Bacchus has more.
While Florida deals with one of the nation's worst COVID-19 outbreaks, the state is also preparing for a powerful storm.
We thought that we had enough with corona. People are panicking even more about it.
California now has the most coronavirus cases in the country, one of 26 states with rising infection rates. The threat of the virus didn't stop hundreds from attending a Newport Beach church service, despite a local mass gathering ordinance.
We have to be realistic about the destruction that the isolation has been causing.
For millions of out-of-work Americans, enhanced unemployment benefits have expired. On Capitol Hill, top congressional Democrats met Saturday with Trump administration officials to try to break a deadlock with Republicans on a new relief plan.
Just saying we'll do halfway doesn't work when people need homes and need jobs and need housing and need help.
We're still a long ways apart, but like with any deal, as you make progress, I think it's important to recognize that you're making progress.
Another House member, Arizona Democrat Raul Grijalva, announced he has tested positive for the coronavirus. Speaker Nancy Pelosi issued a mask order for all House members and staff this week after Representative Louis Gohmert tested positive. Gohmert had made a point of not wearing a mask on Capitol Hill. And as of Saturday, Target, Gap stores, and McDonald's now require masks nationwide. Danya Bacchus, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Up next, see the moments. Tensions grew as groups clashed during a Confederate monument protest in the upstate. This weekend, tensions rose at a protest at a Confederate monument between groups here in downtown Greenville. As Ayla Ferrone reports, the interim chief of police had to step in.
Who lives matter? Black lives matter. Who lives matter? Black lives matter.
Rallies from at least 3 separate groups.
All lives matter. All lives matter. All lives matter.
Taking place around this Confederate statue in downtown Greenville on Saturday.
God bless Dixie.
God bless Dixie.
Community activist Bruce Wilson filed the appropriate paperwork with the city earlier this week to picket.
If we can't get them to remove a racist symbol on the outside, how can we get them to remove racism on the inside?
And was joined by dozens who want the same thing he does, the removal of the statue.
The country is ready for change. Greenville City needs to be ready for change.
But not everyone is on board.
Well, you can just go ahead and move it on back there, pal, because this is my personal space, and I'm enjoying this because I pay taxes.
Counter-protesters from the upstate and from neighboring states joined in opposition of the removal.
We're just a collective group of citizens that are sick and tired of it.
We stand for the Constitution. They have every right to be out here protesting. We have every right to be out here protesting.
This creating a clash between the groups.
Stay
property. My taxes pay for this property.
Y'all are interrupting. You have to go across the street.
Forcing the interim chief of police to step in.
So I need everyone to go with me over here across the street behind the orange barricades.
Wilson saying fair treatment of all people can't happen without the removal of statues like this one.
I'm not asking to be treated special. That's not what this is about. I just want to be treated the same.
And says the counter-protesters showed exactly why he has continued for years, asking that the statue come down.
That's why we're out here demanding that this statue be removed.
Still ahead, the reason officials say they're not allowing the press to attend the Republican National Convention in Charlotte later this month. And we'll get another update on the tropical storm and a look at how Florida locals have been preparing.
Live 5 News starts now with First Alert Weather, tracking Isaias.
Tropical storm Isaias is continuing to track closer to the Florida coast this morning, heading our way. And we are going to head right over to meteorologist Danielle Prenz this morning. You've been tracking this storm, Danielle, and what impacts can we expect to see and when here in the Low Country?
Well, those big impacts, Alexis, really would be that potential for some flooding, but also those strong winds expected tomorrow from Tropical Storm Isaias. So right now, tropical storm force winds certainly a possibility. That's why we see those tropical storm warnings up for much of the Low Country. But that time frame right now looks to be Monday afternoon through early in the morning hours on Tuesday. So I mentioned coastal flooding, especially with those strong onshore winds. That storm surge 2 to 4 feet possible as well for our coastal areas. We'll also have to time out that heavy rainfall with high tides peaking right around 8:59 tomorrow evening. But of course, rip currents, high surf, also a big concern as we head through today and tomorrow. So continue to stay off the waters and stay out of the waters as we track out Tropical Storm Isaias. So here is the tropical storm warnings that have been issued. Does include most of the Low Country, excluding inland Colleton County, as well as farther inland areas just along the I-95 corridor. But notice still some of those spots shaded in pink that include Georgetown, Williamsburg counties. These are issued based on timing. So this is for within the next 36 hours, you could see those tropical storm force winds. So of course, these areas are farther off to the north. So eventually they should be included in these tropical storm warnings. So here's the latest from the National Hurricane Center. The storm is a bit weaker this morning. Winds right at 65 miles per hour, moving off to the northwest, right around 9 miles per hour, should brush itself just along the east coast of Florida, and any land interaction should help weaken the storm, which would be great news for us, but still should pass the Low Country possibly as a tropical storm with winds right around 65 miles per hour. But keep in mind, the Low Country is included in this cone of certainty, so still we can't rule out the center of this storm passing over the Low Country. But for right now, the official track does take that center, making a landfall north of our area. So those impacts expected tomorrow. I'll go ahead and walk you through Future Tracker coming up in the next few minutes.
And you can follow Danielle on Facebook. She'll be posting weather updates and going live to bring you the latest on the tropical storm. Just search for her at Danielle Prenz Live 5 News. Today and tomorrow on Tybee Island, city officials say no one will be allowed to swim in the waters because of unsafe conditions. City leaders say they are walking through their storm checklist, and backup pumps for the sewer system are ready to go in case they need them. And we want to show you a live look right now at Fort Lauderdale, Florida, as Isaias batters the coast. This is right along one of its beaches there, and as you can see, very cloudy and gray out there right now with that wind picking up. And parts of Florida have been seeing impacts from the storm all weekend with strong winds and heavy rain. Many parts along the East Coast have been under a hurricane warning, which then shifted to a tropical storm warning as Isaias downgraded yesterday. Despite all of this, people could still be seen along the beach and in the water. Now, local officials are urging people to stay indoors until this storm passes. West Palm Beach is just one area along the coast seeing heavy impacts as the storm moves closer. Jay O'Brien spoke to residents there on how they're preparing.
The worst is still yet to come in Florida, but it hasn't stopped preparations. This is the entrance into the Lake Worth Beach Pier. It's a way to get to the water, and it's closed. Part of an effort here to hunker down and to keep people away from the shoreline as the storm approaches. And many people we talk with are taking that advice and sheltering themselves.
Put the extra bumper here.
Yanni Carabellas will ride out the storm in about as socially distant a fashion as possible.
Prepare, have it like a bottle of wine.
Alone on his boat with a little music. He's tied his lines tight so the boat doesn't drift away.
I'm tracking it, I'm following it, so I want to believe we're all going to be safe here.
For most of the day, clear skies ahead of a slowing storm.
And I put some ropes around the mast.
Gave Yanni and South Florida some breathing room, but officials are warning not to let our guard down.
We find ourselves managing a hurricane during an unprecedented pandemic.
For the first time, Florida disaster response is being tested, managing an oncoming storm in the middle of a pandemic. Utility companies already warning that social distancing and sanitizing measures could slow their ability to get the lights back on.
I know it's a lot to contend with as a community, but we cannot let our foot off the gas in terms of our response and our diligence.
Yanni is unperturbed.
I got a good feeling that it's not going to be that bad.
2 counties in our area have elected not to open hurricane shelters, saying people are safer at home, concerned about spread of coronavirus. 1 county, Palm Beach County, has opened about 4 hurricane shelters. There are about 100 plus people in those shelters, but they are still encouraging residents to use them as a last resort, part of the crossroads between a pandemic and a storm. I'm Jay O'Brien reporting.
President Donald Trump has signed off on an emergency declaration for Florida due to storm threats. The White House has ordered the Department of Homeland Security and federal emergency management agencies to help with relief efforts there. This is for nearly 20 counties, including the 2 with the largest populations, Broward and Miami-Dade. In your campaign 2020 news, this month's Republican National Convention is set to be closed to press in Charlotte, North Carolina. A convention spokesperson says this is due to social distancing requirements and capacity restrictions. The public components of the RNC were called off in Florida due to a spike in COVID-19 cases. Another official does say part of the convention will be live streamed. That includes the planned formal nomination of President Trump as the Republican Party's nominee for president. Over 300 delegates are set to gather on August 24th. And former Vice President Joe Biden is continuing to narrow down his picks for his vice president position for his campaign for presidency. One of the new names emerging as a contender, California Representative and chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Karen Bass. Others who are rumored to be in the running are California Senator Kamala Harris and Barack Obama's former national security advisor, Susan Rice. Biden told reporters last week that he planned to choose a running mate by the first week of August, but his aides have said it might be closer to the second week. Next, federal agencies are investigating the unsolicited shipment of fruit and vegetable seeds from China. And despite the storm, 2 astronauts are on their way back to Earth. A look at their journey from the International Space Station next. Despite the weather threat posed by Isaias, 2 astronauts from the International Space Station are on their way back to Earth right now. There they are. As Mark Strassman reports, the men are scheduled to splash down today in the Gulf of Mexico following a 19-hour journey.
Despite the storm down below, planet Earth is looking closer for 2 American astronauts, and their SpaceX capsule docked to the International Space Station.
The hardest part was getting us launched, but the most important part is bringing us home.
After separating from the space station, the spaceship's heat shield must protect the crew from temperatures up to 3,500 degrees. Parachutes need to deploy to slow the capsule for splashdown. A recovery ship will be waiting nearby.
We're all going to be breathing a big sigh of relief when we see 4 full parachutes and them safely floating home to Earth.
Back on May 30th, This SpaceX liftoff put America back in the human space launching business. Benkin and Hurley became the first astronauts to leave U.S. soil since NASA retired the shuttle fleet in 2011.
The last of the Apollos, the space...
Not since 1975 have American astronauts returned to Earth on water.
Right on time and just about right on target.
Like everything about space travel, splashdowns involve risk.
You like Bob and Doug? You want them to come back in one piece?
Yes.
We asked SpaceX founder Elon Musk about the pressure of returning both astronauts safely.
I really kind of have to mentally block it because otherwise it would be emotionally impossible to deal with.
One minor worry, after 2 months in space, bobbing around in the water could make the crew seasick.
There's a pretty good likelihood that we may see breakfast twice on that particular day.
The flag's all yours.
In a farewell ceremony, the station commander handed Hurley this American flag. Hurley left it here as a pilot of the last shuttle flight in 2011.
We're very proud to return this flag home.
He's come full circle, like America, as a spacefaring, space-launching nation. Mark Strassman, CBS News, at the Kennedy Space Center.
Well, good Sunday morning, Low Country meteorologist Danielle Prinz keeping a very close eye on Tropical Storm Isaias this morning, expected to impact the Low Country as we head through tomorrow, but especially into tomorrow evening. This morning, this storm has really had a tough time strengthening. You can see those upper level winds kind of just pushing this storm back, so that westerly shear has made it tough for this return to hurricane status this morning. So still a tropical storm with winds sustained at 65 miles per hour, pushing off to the northwest right at 9 miles per hour. And what we're really going to be watching as we head throughout the day is just how much land interaction Isaias has with Florida. More land interaction, the better, because that would help weaken this storm, but likely nearing the Jacksonville area as we head closer to Monday afternoon, just along the Georgia coastline through tomorrow afternoon. And then as we head into tomorrow evening, the center of this storm should be just offshore of the Low Country tomorrow evening. North of our areas, though, by early Tuesday morning, right around 2 a.m., potentially making a landfall north of our spots. But notice the Low Country is in this cone of uncertainty, so any jog in this storm center off to the west, and that would increase the impacts that we see across our areas, but also could go the other way. It could jog to the east as well, which would mean some of these inland areas, maybe even coastal spots, may not see much rain if we see a jog, a far enough jog off to the east, but we can't bank on that. We always do have to prepare for the worst. That's why we're the First Alert Weather Team, so we want to keep you updated. All the areas here shaded in orange, this is that tropical storm warning in place now. This means the next 36 hours you could see tropical storm force winds. So that's 39 to 73 mile per hour winds. This does exclude inland Colleton County as well as inland Beaufort County. And then those areas shaded in pink off to the north, Williamsburg and Georgetown counties. Eventually, you could be added to these tropical storm warnings. So here's a look at Future Tracker. This is tomorrow morning, right around 5 a.m., possibly a couple of showers working their way on shore throughout the morning hours. Tomorrow morning, possibly just fine. Maybe a breeze picking up through the later morning hours, and then I think after the lunchtime hour, that's when those conditions should really start to go downhill, becoming a bit gusty for our coastline. Some rounds of heavy rain working their way on shore, mainly just heavy rain and some wind. And then as we head into the evening hours, that's when we should start to see some of those stronger bands trying to push their way on shore, and potentially this eye wall nearing our coastal areas. So we'll really be keeping an eye on the center and tracking out any jogs in the center off to the west. That's what we don't want. But as we head closer to 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock tomorrow, that's when we should see some of the strongest conditions, strongest winds, heaviest rain just along our coastline. But keep in mind, any shift to the west, this would push some of those impacts farther inland. We're also going to be watching high tide, which will be right at 8:59 tomorrow night. You can see some of these wind barbs. What we're going to be looking for is to just see how that water is being pushed inshore and into our harbor area. So if those wind barbs do match potentially with that high tide, at the same time all those water will be pushed on shore, that could create more coastal flooding for some of those coastal areas. So keep in mind, we do have that storm surge warning, watch in effect. 2 to 4 feet of storm surge possible just along our coastal areas. So we could see some damage to docks as well. And of course, with those strong winds also, we could see widespread power outages tomorrow, as well as some wind damage. But notice some of these tropical models kind of split in two here, but all these models taking the center eventually on land, possibly north of our areas. But notice the modeling here shifted off to the west. Could still see that center work its way onshore in the low country, not out of the question. So we just have to be mindful of this storm, very mindful tomorrow, and just stay updated with it. Here's a look at some of the wind gusts that we could see throughout the day tomorrow, right around 1 o'clock. Can't rule out some gusts right around 20 miles per hour. And then, of course, really starting to pick up through 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock tomorrow night, especially for our coastal areas, expecting those tropical storm force gusts for those coastal spots, possibly. If we see any shift, though, farther inland, some of those inland spots as well could see some of those tropical storm force winds. Keep in mind, though, most of the low country have been issued for that tropical storm warning. So tomorrow, first alert day for everybody. Stay updated. It means more information more often. Today, of course, is a great day to go ahead and tie down any loose objects, bring some of those outdoor decorations inside so they don't become flying debris tomorrow. And then as we head throughout the rest of the week, that rain chance still staying a bit elevated, 40% Tuesday through Thursday. By the end of the work week, that rain chance up to 50%.
Take a look at this. We have new video this morning out of California where a wildfire is burning. Officials say more than 7,500 people have been evacuated out of this area just east of Los Angeles. The first fire broke out Friday evening and is believed to have originated from 3 separate fires. Crews are calling it the Apple Fire because it was originally reported on a street called Apple Tree Lane. As of last night, officials say the fire had burned about 12,000 acres and 0% of it is contained. Right now, no injuries have been reported, and the cause of this fire is still under investigation. In your Consumer Watch, people across the U.S. say they are receiving unsolicited seeds in the mail from China. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says they're from fruits, vegetables, herbs, flowers, and other common plants. USA Today reports that the department has identified about 14 varieties of seeds in these shipments. Anyone who receives them should contact the authorities. The FBI and Department of Homeland Security are helping determine if these seeds pose any risks. And Lowe's is giving away $55 million in grants to small businesses that are struggling during the pandemic. These applications are due tomorrow. Listen up. The home improvement chain is providing the funds through a nonprofit called the Local Initiatives Support Corporation. $32 million are set to go toward women and minority-owned businesses, while the rest will support those in rural communities. And Facebook is stepping into the music world. The social media site says it will begin rolling out official music videos in the U.S. this weekend. Facebook is partnering with Sony Music, Universal Music Group, and others to make this all happen. You'll be able to see well-known artists like Bob Marley, Elton John, and Blake Shelton, to name a few. It says the content will be available under a new music section in Facebook Watch. After the break, we'll check back in with meteorologist Danielle Prinz on the latest as she is tracking this tropical storm.
Well, those tropical storm warnings have been issued for most of the low country this morning. It does include Dorchester, Berkeley County, Charleston County, Coastal Colleton, and down into Beaufort counties. You can see those areas off to the north, though, Williamsburg, Georgetown counties. Right now, just under a watch, but as we head through the next few hours, you could be included within that tropical storm warning as well. And that's all because of Tropical Storm Isaias. Here's the latest this morning, a bit weaker as it goes through some shear that's making it tough for it to intensify. Possibly some land interaction will make it tough for it to intensify as well, but should track just up the east coast of Florida. The more land interaction, the better. And then it will near the low country tomorrow evening, potentially making a landfall north of our areas. But as you can see, all the low country included in this cone of uncertainty. So any jog in the center of the storm off to the west, and that means those impacts could be a bit greater tomorrow. So here's a look at future trackers. Some showers working their way onshore tomorrow, becoming a bit more intense through tomorrow tomorrow afternoon, and those bands will pick up in frequency as we head through the 4 o'clock hour, 5 o'clock. Some of those strongest winds and heaviest rain should push their way through right along our coastline. Tomorrow evening should be north of our areas by the midnight hour. Back at home today, mix of sun and clouds, 20% rain chance, 100% chance for some of that rain tomorrow, although the rain will be highly dependent, as well as the wind, as to where the center of this storm tracks. But all throughout the day, we'll be talking more about this storm.
Thank you, Danielle. And don't forget, you can head over to our website, live5news.com, for the latest information as you prepare for this storm. We have that information on our homepage, and it's under the big red box, as you can see right there. You can also tune in to our Facebook page later this morning around 11 for a Facebook Live update. Danielle will be providing the latest information there. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe.